and welcome to our talk on Steam best practices, developing an audience while developing your game. In short, best practices for marketing your game on Steam starting well before launch. The best marketing tool for your game is your game. It's not use these exact tools or else perish. It's your game is the exact best way that you can market your game on Steam. In other words, the way you develop it and the way you create a community around it are going to help you as you make your decisions to market your game and build your audience. So here's how we're going to talk through that today. We'll start with how Steam is built for developers and players. Having an understanding of that is going to help us talk more about the reason your game is the best marketing tool. That will then help us identify the ways in which marketing on Steam is a little bit unique, or maybe a lot, and how you can frame the way you approach it as a result. After that, we'll dive into a bunch of examples by looking at marketing opportunities on Steam across 3 different phases of the development of your game, from early on in the process to as you approach launch to launch itself and well beyond. So let's start with how Steam is built. Which developers and which players is Steam built for? Correct. It's built for everyone. Steam is a global platform. That means there are games on Steam for everyone. We want Steam to be a place for players to find the games they love, no matter what kind of games those are, no matter where in the world they happen to be playing them. But that doesn't mean that you have to make your game for everyone. Instead, Steam's global audience means you have the freedom to make the kind of game you want for the audience you want. And then you can select from our suite of tools and features to market your game based on your unique goals. We'll highlight some of those tools and features over the course of this talk, but it would help if we had a game to use as an example. You may know this already, but I am not a game developer. I'm also not very good at art, so I enlisted the help of my friend and Valve designer Melissa to help me with this, and I've decided to create a fake game specifically for this talk. Now, just to practice what I preach, I'm making a fake game based on something that I know that is authentic to me, which is my aggravatingly chatty cat, Biscuit. The next hit game on Steam, Shut Up Biscuit. Now, I know what you're thinking. Is Biscuit a real cat? Yes. Yes, he is. Biscuit is 12 years old, and when my oldest daughter was born, he changed his meow to match her newborn cry and then never changed it back. That child is now 6. So as you can imagine, we are often trying to appease Biscuit. We give him lots of pets, but we still often find ourselves yelling, "Shut up, Biscuit!" And unfortunately, the children have picked it up too. Now, I love games that are fun and snarky, so making a game about something that I believe in for an audience I'm familiar with is a good start. So let's practice how we're going to be talking about marketing on Steam today. What would be the right way to market Shut Up Biscuit on Steam? Correct, there isn't one. That's an early test. But we get this question a lot. So for the rest of this talk to bring as much value as it possibly can, I really want to underline this point as much as possible. We do not sell advertising. We don't accept payment for featuring. You can't bribe us. Steam is not built to be the kind of place where we, Valve, decide what should be popular, what should be featured. That would be terrible. It would be boring. Instead, the players decide. Steam is built for the players to make those decisions. We want players to find the games they like and games that they're likely to love. So instead, the work that we do is we look at the choices players are making on Steam and then do our best to get your game in front of the players we think are likeliest to enjoy it. That's why Steam is actually built a little bit like this, a buffet. Beautiful gaming buffet filled with choices for players of all kinds. So when I bring my family to a buffet, not often considering my children are a little insane, we all end up with plates that look completely different. And yet we all have a really delicious meal and have a really positive experience. In the same way that a buffet lets a bunch of completely different food shine, Steam is intended to be a place for all different kinds of games to shine. That means there's literally room for everyone, for all kinds of games by design. This means there is an audience for your game, no matter what that game is. That's why it is so important, especially when it comes to marketing your game on Steam, to be asking yourself two very important questions throughout the entire process. What am I making, and who am I making it for? Let your game dictate your marketing decisions along the way, and keep coming back to this. Stay authentic to what you're making and who you're making it for. Now, Steam knows every developer will be answering these questions differently. That's why instead of having a one-size-fits-all approach to really anything on the platform, but especially how to market your game, what we suggest for you to succeed is really pick what works for you, right? We have a suite of tools and features available to help you market your game. Knowing your answer to what am I making and who am I making it for is what will help you make the decisions about which tools and features are right and make sense for you to connect with your audience. Now, I called it a suite of options, but it's technically also a buffet, right? You can walk through and pick the tools and features that make sense for you in your game. You can also change your mind, figure out what works, figure out what doesn't, and feel free to take in feedback from what is working and try new things. Now that we understand the unique way that Steam is set up for both players and developers, it's time to look at some examples of marketing options that are available to you as you build an audience. Just to simplify for this talk, we're going to break it down into 3 phases of development. Before you finished your game, as you are preparing to launch your game, and immediately after launch and beyond. As we're going through these phases, make sure you keep coming back to the what and who of your game, which again, for this presentation, is Shut Up Biscuit. So let's start by looking at phase 1, before you finished your game. Please don't save marketing for launch day. Get the word out about your game while you are still in development. Communicating about your game and building an audience around it early are some of the key ways you can set yourself up for success at launch, because that's how you start building your wish lists. Wish lists tell Steam who to alert about your game when it launches. We'll get more to how that works later, but just keep in mind, starting early helps wish lists, which helps Steam help you. In the meantime, I want to emphasize when we say get the word out, we're not just talking about Steam. Go to where your future players are. It could be Discord, Twitch, social media. Work with your favorite streamer. Are you launching on multiple platforms? Get your coming soon page up there too. We aren't just suggesting that you consider marketing your game off of Steam, we're insisting that you consider marketing your game off of Steam. Through it all, have a place to send people to keep learning more about your game and follow along in its development. In other words, have a home base. Your home base on Steam is your store page. You can get it ready and mark it coming soon as you're ready to start talking about your game. Not only is your store page a place to learn more about your game, it's also where players can wish list it and pledge that interest early. The choices that you make in setting up your store page represent the first real marketing decisions you'll be making about your game on Steam. Some of the core features you'll want to focus on as you're building your store page are also the things your prospective players will first see. So they double as marketing choices. Today, we're going to talk about your trailer, screenshots of your game description, and tags. So here's an example of where these things live when we visit the fake store page for my fake cat game. Everything you see here is marketing your game to potential players. The giant trailer in the middle, the series of screenshots below it, the game art with the short description, and the tags. I'm going to touch on all of these, but let's start with the trailer. As many of you know, playing a video in a slideshow presentation usually is filled with some awkward pauses and me going, do we have audio? And even though we have a fabulous editor who's going to look at this video later who could drop it in, I say, let's just keep up with the awkwardness and do this as we did in the live presentation, which is to say, a slideshow-friendly live reenactment of what my trailer for Shut Up Biscuit looks like. Join me, won't you? Sorry, you don't really have a choice. Join me. Now, my goal in showing you this is to illustrate just how important a trailer is. So I'm going to press play now. Reluctantly Casey Game Studios presents In a world of darkness and stress, a single tear stains the softest of orange furs, defenseless in this cold, cold world. And yet, there is also warmth and joy, but also coldness and uncertainty. What lies ahead? Only you can decide. The life, the sadness, the joy, all wrapped up in a orange ball of tufted fur, named Biscuit. What kind of game am I making? A melodrama, maybe? Who am I making Shut Up Biscuit for? Artistes? People who love cats? People who hate cats? Hard to say. We didn't really show the game or give you a feel of what it's like to play it. So that's why when we talk about your Steam trailer, what we're actually talking about is gameplay. Show gameplay. Now, a trailer that's leaning into the drama or the artiste of it all, that's great. We're not saying don't do that. That might be perfect for YouTube or some other places where you have visibility for your game. But when it comes to a successful trailer on Steam, it needs to be short and obvious. It needs to focus on showing off gameplay. And save your company logo for the end, if at all. Not that there's anything wrong with showing a company logo, but if that's the first thing you show and you stay on it for any amount of time, really, somebody might click away from it without ever having seen what your game is actually like. You have precious few moments to grab someone's attention, so use your time wisely. You know, my trailer also didn't really seem authentic considering how we set up the vibe for folks with the store page. Kind of different, right? Back to our store page. Let's go to screenshots next because those really do a good job, at least in this example, as far as communicating tone and accurate information. Screenshots from your game, which you can see in the row right underneath the main trailer, are super important. Trailers aren't always people's jam. If they're scrolling on Steam in the middle of a meeting, they're not going to press play on a trailer because it might play audio and it might reveal that they're not paying attention. So you have very, very limited time to try to get them to pay attention, and there's a ton of value to making your screenshots visually communicate as much about your game as possible. Which is why in these examples, you'll notice that we've included UI. That way you can clearly see what it's like being in the game. For example, you can see the purple round Insta Shut Up button on the left there. And when you click on it, the Shut Up bar along the top fills up as a result, and Biscuit shuts up. Scrolling through these screenshots gives you an authentic feel of what the game is like to play. So we've talked about your trailer and your screenshots. The other thing taking up major real estate on your store page is your game art with the description and tags underneath. So there's the game art. We've seen that a lot already, but take a look at the description below it. It's a regular day at home, and we just want Biscuit to shut up already. Choose a player and figure out how to keep this obnoxious cat quiet. This should be short and written in a tone that matches that of your game, while accurately describing it as well as what it's like to be in it. So notice instead of writing, help Biscuit live a quiet life or dodge the law or whatever, we have literally written figure out how to keep him quiet because he's obnoxious, which in tone says a lot about the kind of game you're about to play. Another example of why my example trailer was so wrong for this game. Finally, let's take a look at your tags. Help us help you by using accurate tags. Tags can communicate a ton about your game to prospective players and should accurately describe your game. So if you say to yourself, I wonder what tags are most popular on Steam right now, and then you slap them all on there, Steam isn't going to know how to accurately surface your game to players we think might love it. Imagine if I put first-person shooter on the Shut Up Biscuit page, and Steam's like, hey, you seem to like Counter-Strike. How's about a cat game? Doesn't really make sense. So for Biscuit, we have point and click, funny, villain protagonist, and story rich, all accurate for the game. And these tags aren't just helpful when it comes to describing your game, it also represents how people search for games on Steam, which is why I was talking a lot just a second ago about helping Steam know how to surface it. We can showcase all sorts of cool stuff about your game to a player browsing a section that matches one of your tags. For example, here's the villain protagonist page. Someone who is on this page is likelier to get suggested Shut Up Biscuit because that's how I've tagged it. So we've started building an audience for Shut Up Biscuit. Now we're ready to prepare for launch day, which might lead you to wonder a very important question. Am I even ready to launch? Oh my God, what do I do? So we're going to talk about the ways you can use Steam features and tools to gain confidence that you're ready to launch. However, there is an F word associated with this. It strikes fear in even the most confident and professional of people. And that F word is feedback. Feedback is super fun when it comes from family and friends. It feels like a warm hug of support. But feedback is useful when it's coming from a community of folks who can give you constructive criticism that helps you learn more about your game and what you need to change and what's working, for example. You can also see who it's resonating with. Maybe you thought it was going to go one way, but feedback is telling you something else. These are all things that help you make your game even better. There are a few ways to collect feedback, but we're going to use these as examples today. Closed beta, Steam playtest, and demos. And again, as we go through these, keep in mind, these are also marketing tools that let you work on building your audience of players even further. People tend to feel invested in things they feel like they're helping with and are, we think, more likely to follow along in the progress of your game. For a more controlled setting with a smaller group, you could choose to run playtesting in a closed beta. With a closed beta, you can be intentional with beta Steam keys with exactly who you're handing those keys out to and requesting feedback from prior to launch. Maybe for a specific part of your game, you need players of a certain skill level. Or maybe you're at another part where you need to make sure that you have a specific kind of player testing your game out. These are all great ways in your development process to make sure you're getting feedback from a specific kind of player that you might need. Steam Playtest is a great feature for audiences big and small, but especially for larger audiences because it provides more options for playtesting, whether you use this feature to invite large groups at a time or hand out specific keys. We have found that Steam Playtest can be useful for pretty much any game, but it's especially helpful for developers if, for example, your game is multiplayer or you don't want to worry about servers collapsing or you're checking for things like map balance or matchmaking efficiency. Finally, you can get feedback and drum up excitement ahead of launch by putting up a demo. So with demos, any potential player can try it out because anyone who happens across your Steam store page will see it and can play. So you'll just want to make sure that your demo accurately represents your game and the way that you expect it to be in a fully playable state once it fully launches. One big way to highlight your demo is participating in Next Fest. We run Next Fest 3 times a year, February, June, and October. And the goal is to celebrate upcoming games on Steam by giving them a concentrated spotlight on free demos, chances for feedback, interaction with players. It's a great way to get your upcoming game out in front of a global audience, and it can really be powerful for driving wish lists ahead of launch. Okay, so people are playing your game now, you've gathered some feedback, you've gained confidence that you're ready to launch. So now it's go time. What exactly happens at go time? What happens at launch and beyond? Well, first, you get to hit the big old green button that says Release Game. Here is where all the work you have done to build your audience, communicate with your audience, to gather wish lists before launch, here's where all of that comes into play. Because one of the first things that happens when you launch on Steam is Steam sends an email to everyone who has wishlisted your game because they've wishlisted it based off of seeing your trailer, off of playtesting and offering feedback. Maybe they interacted with you on social media and it got them interested enough to come to your Steam page and wishlist it. Everything you have already done to start marketing your game well before launch. Steam will also add your game to the new release queue, and your game can also pop up in the discovery queues. Now, those are catered to each Steam user, so your game will appear in those based on who is buying your game. Here's another area your game can appear, new and trending. An important note about new and trending. Yes, we have new and trending on the main page, which collects, broadly speaking, all of the new and trending games. But each genre and category hub on Steam also has their own new and trending. So for example, Shut Up Biscuit could show up in the main new and trending, or it could show up in the villain protagonist content hub, or both. So there you have it. Your game is launched, it's pulling wishlisters in, it's building an even bigger audience, and you're all done. It's time to sit back and... Biscuit is unfortunately correct because now the work to keep your audience and add to it has just begun. Please don't abandon your precious audience. Now, I say this and you might be yelling at your screen, wait, wait a minute, lady. Once I've launched, how do I make sure people keep seeing my game or keep liking my game? This is one of the biggest questions and concerns we hear, and it makes sense. You want people to love the game that you've put so much work into. But we've already established there's no money to be paid and no magic password back alley to get featured. So what is a developer to do? This is the key. Keep giving your players excuses to care about your game even after launch. Okay, but how do you do that? First, we come back to the two questions I brought up earlier, which are under this umbrella of staying authentic. All the work you've done by this point means you have a whole audience of folks who are telling their friends about it. They're talking about it. They're putting in some playtime on Steam, which means their Steam friends are seeing them play it. And you stay authentic by coming back to these questions. What am I making and who am I making it for? Knowing the answers to these questions helps you find the options that make the most sense for you to use as you look for ways to keep players interested. There are a lot of things you can consider off of Steam. And again, we highly recommend you do what makes sense for your game. But here's what we can speak to as far as options on Steam to give folks an excuse to care about your game. Discounting. Technically, you can do it anytime. Keep in mind, cooldowns apply. But I want to highlight some of the different kinds of events Steam already has in place for you to offer some of these discounts. Steam hosts 4 major seasonal sales a year, plus a bevy of themed sale fests, which are super fun events that let us dive deep onto specific categories and give them a special spotlight. It's a great chance to celebrate those games and, again, reach a global audience. You can also host your own event. Just keep in mind everyone loves a good deal, so discounting your game is a great way to get it in front of players. Another way is to update your game and use that as an excuse to talk to your players about it. Shipping an update reminds players who bought it, oh yeah, that's right, I've got it in my library, and they fixed that bug, or they're hosting a fun event, or patch notes, and that will then help Steam continue to surface it to more players. Updates and other events you host will show up for players who already own your game at the top here that says what's new. From patch notes to events, your communications with your audience and your game being on discount will all pop up here for those who already own it. So we're about out of time, but I want to acknowledge that anytime we talk about communications and marketing on Steam, I mean, I could go on for 6 hours. You wouldn't like that. I'd fall over. So I just want to acknowledge that there's a lot more to this that are absolutely worth diving into. And some of the tools that you'll notice that may not off the top of your head scream marketing, but they are things like achievements, rich presence, full controller support, localization. I could do an entire talk on localization. And I just want to draw to your attention the fact that there are lots of tools that you can look at on Steamworks through the lens of, will this help me build my audience? We did cover a ton today, though, so I want to shorten it down into what I hope are some main takeaways from this talk. Stay authentic with every marketing decision that you make. Start building your audience and building those wish lists well before launch. Keep it going well after. Authentically build your audience. This is what helps Steam surface your games to players we think will love it. And listen to feedback. Always being willing to pivot is a key to success on Steam, and it's an organic process that continues well after launch. Biscuit says, ta-da! I did not pay him an appearance fee, so hopefully he will forgive me when I come home and give him cat treats. But if you have any questions about what we've talked about here in this video, feel free to email me directly. My email address is casey@valvesoftware.com. Also, anytime you have specific questions about your game or anything else about how Steam works, you can reach out to us using the support tool on the front page. And the support tool goes directly to us, to the team here at Valve, and that helps us surface your questions to whomever we feel like can answer it the best. Thank you so much.